Illuminati.
Oh my god!
It's Illuminati.
Illuminati confirmed. Oh my. What'd you say?
It's Illuminati. It's Illumimilmast.
Illumimilmast confirmed.
Oh my gosh.
We got Milmast and Mini Milmast. Is that what Ian called you?
Yeah.
Minimast? No, Minimast.
Yeah, Minimast.
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 What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode. Today in this video, we're going to go over the differences between wheel spacers and wheel adapters. Now, in a previous video, I showed you guys how to mount up wheel adapters on your car. Now, I labeled them wheel spacers, and they basically do the exact same thing. All they do is they extend where the OEM wheel sits on the car. So, on the car that we have right here, the Volkswagen Golf, we've got the wheel right here, and as you can see, it's tucked into the fender. So by installing either a spacer or an adapter on the car, what we're going to be able to do is extend the wheel and push it out so it's flush with the fender. So we have a wheel spacer for the front, where it's basically a machined piece of aluminum with extended lug nuts that mount up on the wheel. Now that's what's going to be happening, and that's what's going to be going down for the front. For the rear, it's going to be slightly different. So if we come back here, we've got a larger gap to create. So this wheel needs to be shoved out a little bit more, and we're going to be using a wheel adapter that we have right here, which is the lug nuts and studs essentially pressed into the spacer. So we have that there. As you can tell, we have 5 of them for our 5x100 wheel, and we're going to be tightening this up similar to a wheel. So there's multiple reasons why we're doing this. Now, outlined in my previous video, I explained how they benefit the car. So because the wheels are going to be pushed out more from the center of the vehicle, we're going to have a better track, and the car is actually going to be able to turn better. So because the wheels are pushed out more, it's more stable around turns. Now, not only that, we have a aesthetic difference. So the wheel right there, it's going to be pushed out slightly, so it's going to be flush with the fenders, as I said. Now lastly, we're going to have more clearance between the spokes and the brakes. So our brake caliper right now is probably less than 1 millimeter away from the backside of the rotor. And we want to put different brake pads in there, and the brake pads are a little bit meatier than the current ones that we have installed on the car. So with these wheel spacers right here, we're going to be able to push the wheel out and fit larger brakes inside the wheel. So step 1 is going to be jacking the car up in the air and putting jack stands underneath the pinch welds to secure it in place. So we're going to jack the car up in the air completely, we're going to support the weight of all of the vehicle, and we're going to be removing each one of the wheels so that we can install the spacers on the backside of the hub. Now once you have the car in the air, grab an impact gun or any kind of method to remove each one of the wheels. So you're going to be removing each one of the lug nuts that's securing the wheel onto the car. So we have the wheel removed from the car along with each one of the lug nuts. And as you can tell, we've got our brake right here, and we've got our 5 mounting holes for the lug nuts that go through it. Now, if we grab our wheel spacer and mount it on the car, all it does is it slides over top of the OEM brake, and we line it up so that the bolts are going to be able to go through this side of the spacer, and they're also going to be lined up in there into the hub. So we're going to have it installed like that. And if you can see in there, they line up. Now they don't, now they do. So the hole aligns itself up like that. You just slide it over and twist it until it's good. Now this wheel spacer that we have right here is rated for 2 different sizes. So this is actually quite universal. Now it's not universal for everything, but it's got 2 different sizes for lug nuts. So as you can tell right here, it's a 5x100 and a 5x112. Now this is a 5x100 vehicle, so we're going to be using that one, which is the smaller size. Align it up like that, and then we're going to grab our wheel and use different lug nuts to install this. So the lug nuts that we took off of the car are small, like this, as you can tell, and we've got our new ones right here, and you can see the size difference. So the reason why these extended lug nuts are essential is so that you're going to have the same amount of threads attached in the backside of the hub, so that you're going to be able to thread the spacer right here on top, and you're going to be able to put the bolt through it. So we're not going to have less thread holding the wheel on the car, because otherwise the wheel could fall off very easily. So this right here is a 15 millimeter spacer, and we have about 15 millimeters of extra thread on the bolt. So we're going to be disregarding these, we're going to throw those aside, and we're going to be installing new extended lug nuts that came with our spacer on the car. So we're going to grab our wheel, mount it up, and then feed each one of these through there. So pick up the wheel, lift it up, and mount it so it's on top of the spacer. Carefully line it, just like that. So once you have it centered, you're going to grab each one of these new lug nuts and you're going to thread them through each one of the holes in there. So our wheel and our wheel spacer are both rated for 5x100 and 5x112. Hence why you see so many different lug holes inside of there. So start threading each one of these lug nuts through the wheel to secure it onto the car. So keep tightening up each one of these lug nuts until they're hand tight completely so that the wheel doesn't move. And then at that point, we can lower the car onto the ground and use a torque wrench to properly torque each one of these lug nuts on. So with this secured up for now, we can move on to the backs. Now these fronts are wheel spacers, as I mentioned before, and on the backs they're wheel adapters. Now just note the torquing procedure once we start working on the rears. So we don't have to torque these until we put the car down onto the ground. Now the rears are slightly different. So just like the front wheel, we're going to be removing the wheel by removing each one of the 5 lug nuts that's securing the wheel onto the car. Now once we have that out of the way, it's going to be time to mount up our wheel adapter onto the hub. So the difference between the spacers and the adapters is that we're going to be having to use the OEM lug nuts that came on the rear wheels to install the spacer, or actually the adapter, onto the hub. So we're going to mount it on there like that, and then once we have that, you can install the bolts and thread them into the hub. So there's going to be 5 of them. You're going to be doing that first. Now once you install all 5 of these, at that point you're going to have to torque each one of these lug nuts up properly so that the wheel isn't going anywhere. So when you're installing something like this, you need to torque up the spacer to the hub, and then you're going to be torquing up the wheel to the spacer, if that makes sense. So once you have all 5 of these tightened up, someone then needs to go inside the car, put their foot on the brake, and then the other person is going to have to install and torque up each one of these lug nuts so the spacer is properly mounted onto the car. So once you have the wheel spacer hand tight onto the hub, my little brother right now is going to be using the torque wrench to tighten up each one of those little studs on there while I go in the car and hold the brake pedal. Now what this is going to do is it's going to keep the wheel spacer and the hub from spinning so he can apply torque onto each one of the lug nuts. So you're going to tighten each one of these lug nuts to the same specification that the OEM wheel is set to. So in the owner's manual, if your car is set for say 80 foot-pounds of torque, that's what you're going to be tightening each one of these lug nuts for the spacer onto the hub to. So we're going to be tightening this up to 85 foot-pounds of torque. And once you do all 5 in the same star pattern, we're going to then grab our wheel and do the exact same thing. So we're going to mount the wheel onto the spacer. So at this point, you should have all 5 of those lug nuts that were on here on the studs removed. We're going to grab our wheel, mount it onto those studs, and then we're going to be putting each one of these little lug nuts back on to each one of those studs. Now at that point, again, we're going to go ahead and then we're going to torque on each one of these to the proper manufacturer spec. Now once you have those hand tight, what we can do is we can either lower the car completely on the ground and torque up both the lug nuts on the front and back, or with the car in the air, if you want to torque them up if you want, you can go inside the car, press the brake pedal, and then have person number 2 torque up each one of the lug nuts. So with the wheels now torqued up on the car, we can grab the car, put a jack underneath it, lower it down onto the ground, and then the car is going to be flush. Now if we take a closer look, we're going to be able to see that we have a lot more room between the brake caliper and the inside part of the spoke. Now even if we go ahead and turn the wheel, we're going to be able to see that there's clearance and enough room for us to install larger brakes on the vehicle. And we're going to be doing exactly that. So we're going to be installing a set of EBC yellow stuff brake pads, and we're going to be replacing the OEM ones in there with those better track set brake pads. Now it's going to lower the stopping distance and make the car overall safer because the brakes are going to be able to perform that much better. So once you remove the jack stands, set them aside, you can then go ahead and lower the vehicle, and you can see that the wheels are going to be flush with the fender. Look at that, that's killer. If you ask me, on a vehicle like this that has wheel bolts as opposed to wheel studs, going with wheel spacers is going to be a much easier and better option for you. That way, you're going to be able to install your wheels in a matter of no time. You're not going to have any problems lining up the wheel, retorquing twice, or whatever it be. You just slap the spacer on, put the new lug nuts, the extended lug nuts on the car, and then you're done. So once you have it all torqued up and ready to go, you can then go ahead and take your car out for a spin. And that, guys, is how you go ahead and install wheel spacers and wheel adapters on your car. If you guys stay tuned for the next video, we're going to show you how to install aftermarket brake pads on your car, and we're going to show you how much of a difference it actually makes from stock. If you guys learned a thing or two about the video, feel free to share it with your friends, and maybe, they can be as educated as you. If you guys have any questions regarding the video, throw them down in the comment section below, and we'd be happy to help. Again, guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace. If you guys have any, and behind the scenes we see a natural mini mast working on a, oh my god, is that a Volkswagen? What is that? What is that? Crikey! What are those? What are those? Who likes the thongs? Yeah, yeah.